Alright, and I'm back for what I imagine is probably my fourth episode of this thing. Still, same day recording, just came back from a break. Um, just fed Hamlet, he's doing good. Had him run around a bit. I think I was heading down to Brayton. So this is going to be a farming episode, but I don't imagine too many people are here to just watch me run around. There's nothing that I'm going to be doing that hasn't been done on YouTube before. So, I'd like to think that if you're here, still here, 4 episodes in, for whatever reason, it's because you like listening to me talk about myself. But I was actually just thinking about something else I wanted to bring up. And that's, strangely enough, ethnicity. Now, I mentioned before that... Oh, also, I was reviewing some of the footage from before, and I didn't realize how quiet my voice was. I feel like I've run into this problem before, and I still haven't found a good solution for it. Ah, see? The camera stutter. Man. It's okay, it's a good thing I was already hollow. I mentioned before that one of my parents was not born in this country. Oh, that's right, you. Truth be told, I don't actually care to follow through with his storyline. There you go. Now that I think about it, I think I have a firekeeper soon. I do. Thank you. Alright, so I'll pick that up when I come through at some other point. Anyways. Yeah, so one of my parents was adopted at the age of 3 in the Philippines. Brought to America. So, no real knowledge of original language and stuff like that. But with my other parent being, very American in the sense that, it's just sort of a mixture of otherwise American associated ethnicities like French and Dutch once they were all melted together. So very, very Caucasian. So that mix with, Filipino mix has kind of left me in an interesting place. So the way I've generally approached it, and not even really because this is how I've chosen to do it, at least, okay, it's how I've chosen now, but previously, when I was trying to feel out how people saw me, it was basically with facial hair. So if I go without shaving for a while, I actually look Hispanic. And so people will think I'm Hispanic. And being on the East Coast, being Hispanic means you're, like, Cuban or something. West Coast, people might assume I'm Mexican. It's very unusual for people to immediately jump to Filipino. But when I shave my face and I'm more clean-shaven, I look more, assumably Pacific Islander. So you might think I'm either Filipino or Hawaiian, or some variant thereof. Yeah, I'm gonna be down here a while. Normally I like to do this after I get my golden snake ring, or whatever it's called. But, we're just gonna be doing this on humanity, so I'm just gonna get to the bonfire over in the tree first. Whoops. Yeah, so that's kind of changed how I've approached certain things. Like, so, okay, I can be either, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, with the way that I talk. And I'm sure you've noticed already, I have a very, how would I say, I talk like a very white person. Like, if you never saw me and you only heard my voice, you may have a picture in your head of what I look like, and you may not have immediately pictured someone of either Hispanic or Pacific Islander heritage. But, because I can speak so clearly, I feel like people treat me differently than they would if, I don't know, maybe I didn't speak so clearly. It's weird. Like, so when people can only see me... Alright, here's actually an interesting example. And this may be less my fault and more just the fault of the, other parties involved. But I was at the mall one time with my fiance. I had to go to the bathroom. And then, so she just waited outside near one of the sitting areas. And she told me after I was done that she was approached by a security guard. And he asked if she was okay, and if she, literally, if she was, kidnapped or something. And was just, kind of following me around quietly, not saying anything because I guess that kind of thing happens. And she's like, no, he's my fiance. He's just going to the bathroom. And he's like, are you sure? And so that was probably the most extreme example that we've run into. But the stuff like that happens. And now we're both from mixed racial backgrounds. Not from the same place. Like the parent where I get my non-white traits from was from somewhere else than where her parent is from. But she looks considerably more Caucasian than I do. And the thing is, her birth name is actually considerably more non-white than mine. And, but as her appearance and then my appearance walking around in public, people have, their own interpretations of what our relationship is. So, that security guard thought I had, kidnapped her. And she was just sort of quietly following me around. Because I had brainwashed her or something. It was really crazy, and it sounds like a pretty unrealistic scenario, but it happened, and it was pretty unrealistic sounding even when she told me. And I was just like, wow. And then, of course, we'll get weird things yelled at us when we're walking down the street. Nothing specifically toward, our appearance, but the kind of things that I guess people would normally get yelled at them by, jerks who would yell out of the car. The weirdness for me is when it's people would just sort of stare at us with eyes of, you can tell they're trying to figure us out. So, I guess for starters, like I'd mentioned, neither of us are particularly social people. We're both pretty antisocial. So, we'll walk around not talking to anybody. And then, I'm darker skinned than my partner is, walking around, not talking to anybody. I guess that just kind of leaves a lot of room for people to fill in the gaps, of with their own imaginations of what it is. And I suppose it's just society's fault for painting such an otherwise extreme picture of mixed race couples. I mean, we're a mixed race couple in the most extreme sense of mixed race. We're both combinations of different races. But by appearance, it looks like I'm the more ethnic one, more non-white than she is. And I feel like we're gonna, eventually come into more strange stories about encounters with people in public, just sort of walking around, going forward. But at this point, because of the things we've already had to deal with, it's something we're sort of prepared for, Man, these guys aren't dropping anything for me. So that's going to be interesting. And then, of course, I have a sister, I think I mentioned before. She looks considerably less ambiguous than I do. I am ambiguously, Pacific Islander or Hispanic, whereas my sister is considerably more Pacific Islander looking. And so is our non-white parent. Still nothing, huh? Goodness. Oh, I think I got a new set of clothes that would actually be... yeah, more beneficial than the poison. Slight enough? Oh, good it is. And I guess tangentially, that kind of goes into a conversation, I guess, about norms and how people approach them. And specifically, like, masculine, feminine roles and stuff in society. Like I'd mentioned before, I have not so many shared life experiences that I can relate to, and a lot of people, when they talk about the struggles that they've had, well, my fiance is one of them. Like, she's had to go through a lot more than myself. She's had to figure out a lot on her own that I haven't. And, I've kind of had that life of people more or less just kind of giving me the way to do things. And so we've come across a lot of situations since just being together where she's taken up the traditionally masculine role of being the handyman, so to speak. So when there was something wrong with the car, she was definitely more familiar with car-related problems because, she's owned a car longer and she's had to deal with the actual car-related problems. When it comes to house stuff, I think we're both pretty much at the same level of general inexperience because, she's had to deal with her own stuff, but then I also grew up with a carpenter. So I had a pretty general sense of house things. But that kind of got us into a conversation at one point, and not just at one point, but at a couple of points. Something we keep returning to is, like, when and if we eventually have children, how do we want to raise them, in the current society? And one thing we agreed on is we definitely want to try and avoid as much gender stereotyping as possible and not condition our child to be one way or the other. Let our child choose. And we suspect that we'll probably encounter a lot of scenarios where we'll get gifts from parents and friends of things that'll be very traditional. Like, if we have a son, they'll probably get him a lot of blue toys and things like that. I want to be less concerned about the color of the toys and the clothes that they're wearing, and more that they like the toys and the clothes. Like, one thing that we both agreed is something that our child is going to, excuse me, have in their life is dinosaurs. We both love dinosaurs, my fiance and I. So, clothing and toys featuring dinosaurs is something that's going to be there. We feel like dinosaurs are generally gender neutral, but it seems like society believes them to be more masculine. Or at least in the sense that it's more normal, for boys to be playing with dinosaurs and wearing clothes with dinosaurs on them. Or if the girl is going to be wearing dinosaurs, it'll be like some super cartoony, cutesy version of the dinosaur, And we want to try and avoid that. Like, if we have a boy who likes cutesy dinosaurs, then well, so be it. I was into Barney for a while, so whatever. I also want to avoid my kid finding, like, labels too attached. Like, I don't want to have my kid think, like, alright, well, I like this stuff, so I have to like the rest of the things that are attached to people who also like this stuff. I don't want them to be defined by the things that they like. That's a hard lesson learned in high school and college, and some people don't even learn it then. But I like, as much as possible, I would like my kid to have that kind of thing basically sort it out for his self or herself as early as possible without any of the pain of not knowing yourself. Like, I guess that's just kind of part of being a teenager, but wowza. And I'm dead. Yeah, poison. I thought I was already dead when they smacked me, but... And I was like, oh wait, I'm alive, but the poison's gonna get me, so I didn't have time to heal. What was I saying? Yeah, so... That's one of the things we talk about when it comes to... Not even specifically a kid that we want to raise, but generally trying to raise a kid in this day and age. Another point we keep returning to is what to do about technology exposure. It's something we can't avoid. You know, we're not going to try and police it like in a very destructive way. We both understand, and we both come from places where we entirely sympathize with too much policing is dangerous for development. And technology is just going to have to be one of those things where, like, when we were growing up, it was at least an easier topic to debate about how much exposure your kid should get too soon. But in today's day and age, it's less of a debate about how much exposure your kid should have and more about what kind of education we should be giving them with regards to this technology now, because you now have less control over the kind of exposure your kid's going to be getting than ever before, because it's everywhere, you know? Like, sure, you can not get your kid a cell phone until a certain point, but everywhere you turn, you're going to run into that defense of, you know, well, what if your kid needs to contact you or have some other emergency that needs to be dealt with when you're not around? Like if they go to a friend's house or something, or they go, you know, to the movie, or somewhere where you won't be immediately present. And that's an option now available that makes more sense than anything else than it did back when I was a kid. Because I didn't get my first cell phone until I was in middle school. And even then, I don't even know what kind of phone it was. It was some very, you know, cheap, small phone. I didn't even have like a plan. I didn't have like a cell phone plan. I had track phone. It was one of those like pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-use type of plans. And it was really just there as a utility, an emergency utility. But that was because that was really the limited function of the phone. Now, I'm pretty sure the lowest functioning phone that you can get is still pretty advanced. Like, you can get your kid a non-smartphone, but that's still going to have a lot more on it than just emergency functionality, you know? So what do you do with that? And not just phones. I mean, there's computers and internet too. But, you know, that's a whole discussion where I really don't know. I don't know where... I didn't even know how to form a solid opinion about it. All I know is, you know, the facts, and even with all the facts together, I can't come to any reasonable conclusion about the whole thing. All I can think of is... You know, you treat it like a gun, basically. And you just have to tell them the things that it is capable of, and to respect its power, and basically to keep a lid on it, like a personal lid, like a know your limits of your control kind of thing. Don't allow yourself to become drunk with this power. But that kind of lesson is unfortunately learned best on one's own. Like, listening to someone tell you not to get drunk on power tends not to mean too much until you've been burned by it, you know? So, like, for me, with regards to technology, I guess I could say I was first burned by it when, let's see what, yeah, back in the 90s, chat rooms. There were a lot of scary people using chat rooms back in the day. How am I doing? Oh, I need one more. Good. And, I mean, I wasn't in the target audience. Like, I mean, sure, I was a young kid, but predators are more after young girls. It was still a scary place, and I got to talk with a lot of people who were, I don't know, people I would never talk to in real life. Not for more reasons than one. Like, there were definitely some people older than me, definitely looking for someone to take advantage of, so to speak. Oh boy. And I've heard plenty of other stories from like some of my friends and their experiences in chat rooms. I wouldn't say that that was like the first time I was quote-unquote burned, but that was like my first exposure to what this tool is capable of, and in a negative way. Did I get all the slugs? I think I got them. Alright, let's do this one more time. And, I guess my next exposure to, like, learning not to take that power too far was, you know, clicking on ads whenever a website would pop up with ads. I remember back in the day when MySpace was big, was putting like custom, well, actually just general customizations, all different kinds of wallpapers and you know, moving objects and images and sound and whatever on your MySpace page. And so trying to find really cool customizations to my MySpace page led me to a lot of otherwise shady websites. And a lot of them would have ads. You'd click on them because they sounded interesting and you didn't know not to click on ads at the time. And, yeah, you'd end up with viruses and crap on your computer. You know, found that out the hard way. But that's just like a small example, you know? I mean, there's definitely a lot more to be afraid of now on the internet, like, you know, people stealing information and whatnot. Okay, well, there's my last large titanite shard, so I'll get out of here. Unfortunately, it's a long way out. Get my way to Andre. And then we'll come back and finish off Quelaag. So, like, I don't want my kid or anyone's kid's first negative experience with technology to be something like, you know, they got a lot of personal information stolen. And not just information, but like, when you have something, like a tool that allows you, it's a certain level of personal privacy, you know, sort of like a diary, but you can have it with you all the time and have a certain amount of assurance that it will be safe and the things on it will be safe. When you give that kind of power to a kid, especially in this day and age, stuff like, I don't know, very personal texts, you know, saying very personal things, or pictures you don't want anybody to see, having that kind of thing on that kind of device is entirely reasonable, you know. And so I don't want anyone's first experience with technology to be something like a massive invasion of privacy like that. Because I've actually been on both ends of that kind of invasion of privacy. And I gotta tell you, it's actually pretty ugly both ways. You know, if you're on the receiving end and you get your stuff stolen, you know, someone sees stuff you don't, or, you know, someone sees stuff that you don't want them to see, it feels like you've been gutted. I mean, suddenly you have no secrets, It's very scary. And there's probably a whole bunch of other words I can use to describe it, but it's really just an awful, awful feeling. And then being on the other end of it, too. You know, curiosity led me to invading someone's privacy. And it was kind of, you know, it destroyed us. You know, we basically didn't have a functioning relationship anymore at that point. So, I've been on both ends of it, and it's not pretty. And I didn't even hack, but that's kind of like the point. You know, kids these days don't even have to run into anyone who's particularly tech savvy in order to you run into a bad experience with it. So, I would hope that educating them would be enough to mitigate some of the concerns about it, you know? Like, yes, this thing is a very powerful tool, you can do all these things with it, but please understand, it comes with these risks. You know, my general sense of, if you don't want pictures, you don't want anyone else to see, then don't take them, you know? If someone wants to share pictures with you that no one else should be seeing, I mean, that's a different risk entirely. They're taking that risk. But I feel like, you know, that's still a responsibility on you. It's also a level of your privacy because it was shared exclusively with you. So if that happens, you should understand that this is now a mutually exclusive, you know, binding contract you've been involved in. Do not breach that contract. I mean, life doesn't come with written things like that, where it's like, you have this to lose if you breach this social contract. Because for all you know, you could lose everything. It's just not worth the risk. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. I feel like that got a little too deep and too serious. I'm sorry if anybody was hoping for something a little more light, but yeah, it's just kind of the reality of the situation we live in now. I'm trying to figure out how to handle current events and situations. Things are getting pretty chaotic in politics and culture and economics, but there's also the pretty normal stuff, the stuff that's been happening since before we began recording history, you know, stuff like raising kids. It always kind of comes back to the basics. What is the right way to do these things? You know, some people like to criticize history for not allowing us to, you know, learn from these lessons well enough. That's why we keep screwing it up, but I don't think we keep screwing it up because history's, you know, a bad teacher, or that we're bad students from what we've done. I think it's just that it's such a complicated thing, it cannot be mastered, and if anyone thinks that they've mastered something like, you know, the right way to raise a child, I feel like they're just not seeing the whole picture. You can see a lot of the picture, but people are complex things. You know, your time and place and history and culture, they're complicated things, and they're all interrelated, one way or another. Which I guess to bring back to my initial topic, my sense of hollowness from the first episode, and I think second, is maybe that's, you know, where my hollowness is coming from. I feel like there's a detachment between me and this otherwise massive, connected society.
I've seen one of those before.
Oh, that's right, the divine ember. I was like, what is he talking about? Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. You've made a fine decision.
I actually just want to reinforce this. Oops. There we go. And now I just need one more ember and I can max that out. Oh yeah, you. Can I even use this? Oh, I don't have the dex to do it. That's okay.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of it.
Now that I think about it, actually, well, how long have I been recording? Let's see, I started this particular session. Grab my phone real quick. yeah, I suppose this is a good place to stop. I'll take a break here, end this episode, and I'll come back after a bathroom break and some more coffee, I guess. And then I'll go get the longbow. I think I still have the stats to use that, don't I? Yes, I do. Good. Alright, so this concludes episode 4. I'll come back, get the longbow, and probably go for the a large ember. So I'll see you then.